With the US being a major global economy and the wealthiest country based on GDP, it's quite shocking to imagine that there are American citizens, including children, who are hungry and existing on the streets without any roof over their heads. According to the United States Census Bureau's 2022 report, 37.9 million people in the US find themselves living in poverty. Surveys also reveal that more than half of US adults are living paycheck to paycheck. In other words, many Americans would be in a bit of a pickle if that paycheck didn't hit on time. As if that's not enough, more than a quarter of Americans owe some form of debt in collections. Now, after dissecting the demographics, from children's rates of poverty to working-age adults and single-parent families, one question remains: is America still the land of opportunities or the land of the poor? Well, it's a bit like trying to answer whether a glass is half full or half empty. It depends on who you ask and how many cups of coffee they've had. Before we begin with the chapters of this video, what do you think about the poverty situation in America? Let us know with some facts. Americans make up a tiny fraction of the world's population, but a good percentage, 20% of the total income worldwide, flows into their pockets. Impressive, right? But even at that, 1 out of every 10 Americans is doing the poverty shuffle, according to the Census Bureau. 2 things are needed to decide whether or not a family is in poverty. First, how many buddies you've got in your household. And second, how much dough they're bringing in. Playing by the government's rules in 2021, a family of 4 would be in the poverty zone if they were making $26,500 or less, while the average income for a family of the same size was $90,657. Poverty in the US has a bunch of reasons behind it. Things like low wages, unemployment, not enough education, lack of government support, medical bills piling up, plus a sprinkle of institutional racism and discrimination. For this quick video, though, let's dive into just a handful of these factors. The gap between the haves and the have-nots in the US keeps getting wider. In the first quarter of 2023, data from Statistica revealed that 69% of all the money in the country was in the pockets of the top 10% of earners. Meanwhile, the bottom half was just left with 2.4%. To put it bluntly, the rich are getting richer and the poor are finding themselves in an even tougher spot. But perhaps this is all part of an elaborate plan to keep the economy on its toes and maintain that delicate equilibrium between excess and, well, more excess. It gets worse when we shift from what people earn, their income, to what they own. That is, their assets, investments, and other wealth. In 2021, the top 1% in the US clutched 34.9% of the nation's wealth, while folks in the bottom half had just $12,065, which is less than counterparts in other industrial nations. Also, the wealthy typically have a lower spending rate than those with lesser resources, and the significant concentration of this wealth puts the brakes on how fast the economy can grow. When it comes to poverty rates and the extent of income inequality, the United States is in a league of its own among developed nations. In the last 2 years, America has done some pretty great stuff to tackle poverty after the COVID-19 pandemic. Safety net programs, for example, the expanded child credit and universal school meals helped millions climb out of poverty and directly aided low-income households. However, once these programs expired, poverty made a serious comeback. Now, Hunger Free America's 2023 National Hunger Survey report dropped some truth bombs. Turns out, from September to October 2023, about 40% more Americans were dealing with not enough food compared to the same months in 2021. The numbers went up from 19.7 million to 27.8 million people nationwide. And it's all because of the expiration of the expanded child tax credit and universal school meals. Although the US outspends other wealthy nations on healthcare per capita, the country still falls short in life expectancy and overall health outcomes. A recent survey conducted by the Harris Poll from February to March 2023 and commissioned by the American Academy of Physician Associates explains just how bad these challenges are. From the survey, patient satisfaction is tap dancing on thin ice, and the culprits are as clear as a prescription bottle label written in giant, friendly font. Some of these factors include high costs, accessibility issues, and convoluted logistics of the U.S. medical care. Over half of the approximately 2,500 surveyed U.S. adults scored the U.S. healthcare system a grade of C or below. When asked about factors hindering people from accessing care, cost took center stage, closely followed by the healthcare system's profit-centric focus, difficulties in obtaining insurance coverage, and confusion regarding what the insurance covers. We all know that having a higher level of education increases one's chances of securing a stable economic future. Sadly, African American and Hispanic students are facing a graduation gap of nearly 20%, leaving them with a tougher climb out of poverty compared to their peers. The challenge lies in the fact that without the necessary knowledge and skills, scoring well-paying jobs in today's workforce becomes tricky. Undereducated adults pass the torch of limited upward mobility to the next generation, and the poverty relay continues. But here's the thing. Educational opportunities, which are meant to open doors, can hinder financial security due to the burden of student loans and mounting student debt. This creates a situation where the path to economic advancement is fraught with challenges, especially for those facing barriers to education. As reported by Newsweek in 2022, inflation is worsening the challenges of poverty in the U.S. Individuals with lower incomes are bearing the brunt of this economic strain, dealing with soaring costs of necessities such as food, energy, and housing. Across the socio-economic spectrum, inflation is, unfortunately, not an equal opportunity spender. The price hike, particularly for food and energy, disproportionately affects the most financially vulnerable households. But for individuals with moderate or higher incomes, the increase in prices may be seen as a mere inconvenience. The impact of high inflation is also pushing people to rely on credit cards, and this leads us to the next chapter. After initially boosting their financial savings during the pandemic, Americans are sinking into the sea of debt. The noticeable spike in credit card debt has been a gradual development, with a growing reliance on plastic for purchases. However, this increase has been supported by factors such as inflation and elevated credit card interest rates. According to a recent study from WalletHub, consumers accumulated $180 billion in new credit card debt in 2022, marking the largest single-year addition ever recorded as per a recent study. Notably, nearly half of this total, almost $86 billion, was amassed in the fourth quarter, representing the most substantial quarterly uptick in credit card debt to date. The rising costs for essentials such as food, housing, and fuel are the debt magnets, forcing people to turn to credit cards. According to Ted Rossman, a credit expert at creditcards.com, it's the daily necessities that frequently lead individuals into credit card debt. To make matters worse, increasing credit card interest rates are making the debt mountain steeper than ever. In a recent podcast interview on finance with Sharon during the Growth Summit India 2023 in September, Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, made a striking statement.
America is going to be the poorest country in the world, starting now.
This declaration raises crucial concerns given the multitude of challenges currently confronting the United States. There is a need for more government programs and a better approach to measuring and curbing poverty in a developed nation like the United States. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content.